welcome to another episode of Gordito's Garage. So today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be fixing this wooden door. Currently it does not close, so it's dragging on the bottom, and then when it swings all the way open, it pulls on these hinges, and it's been pulling out the screws. So I've fixed this door. The first time I fixed it, all I did was I just changed the location of this bottom hinge because the same thing was happening. The screws were being pulled out, so I changed the location. When that didn't work, I changed the hinges, and then I also added 2x4s on the back, just piece of block of 2x4, just so the hinge can have something more solid to screw into. So I did that at the top and the bottom. But the issue remains the same, is that this door is really heavy. It just does damage to those hinges. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add this spring also, and that should help the door from swinging all the way open, damaging the hinges. I'm going to change out these 2x4s, change out the screws. I'm going to lift the door just a little bit just because it is dragging, and then that way it should be able to close without having to lift it and force this lock to close. All right, so let's get to it. Now what we're gonna do, we're gonna cut this 2x4 down, and what we're doing differently this time is we're gonna use a bigger piece, and then we're gonna screw it into this. The last time I just had the block kind of floating, and then the only thing that was holding it to the hinge was the screws coming in from the hinge. But now what we're gonna do is we're gonna have a longer piece screwed into the 2x4, that way it moves less, and then the screws coming in from the hinge. So development, when I straightened out the door and tightened it down, it started hitting on this post, and I realized it was because this 2x4 of the door is actually bowed out, so it has a curve to it. So even though the hinges are straight, the door is crooked, so it started hitting here. So I shaved some off of the post. So now I'm just gonna give it a coat of the Thompson's water seal. It's the same stuff I used on this fence. Door's been screwed, leveled, raised a bit. Now latches on its own, doesn't scrape on the bottom. Look at it closely. My fault, huh? And then all we have to do now is just install our spring, screw it on, and then depending on how tight you want the spring, you could just tighten this and it'll put more tension on the spring. But we want it pretty loose just because we have my niece and she's not that strong yet, and then my mom. So we'll just kind of, we'll leave it as it is now. So I'm gonna drill some pilot holes there and then down here, and then we'll screw that in. So the way that works is like you open the door, you can open it, but it won't swing all the way out. It'll close on its own. Alright, so that's gonna wrap it up for this episode of Gordito's Garage, or Gordito's Fence. But one thing I do want to know is that something that I've learned about working with wood, or a wood fence in this case, is that it's never going to be the same, because when you first build it, wood is fresh. Once it starts drying out, once it goes through a couple cycles of, winter and summer and winter and summer, it swells, it dries. So, the wood starts bowing, screw holes start getting wider just because they start shrinking, and the screws start getting a little loose sometimes. Also, in between the boards, the gaps start getting a little bigger. So with this fence specifically, I've had to, shift the boards over a couple times. I've had to replace a couple boards that just started bowing too much. I've had to tighten screws, and that's just part of owning a fence. So today, when I was adjusting the hinges for the 4th time now, of course I noticed the door is not square anymore. The post is a little leaning, and that just goes with the fence. So it's not going to be as square as when you first built it, and that's just something you're going to have to get used to. It's going to be a lot of finicky adjustments here and there, shaving a bit here, shaving a bit there, but that's just part of it. Like I said, I'm not a professional. This is just upkeep that I've done to this fence specifically. It may be different in your case. It is what it is, but so yeah, like I said, it's gonna wrap it up for this episode. Thank you for tuning in. Stay tuned for the next episode of Gordito's Garage. Thank you. Like, share, and subscribe.